call the meeting to order. Please flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here. Approval of agenda. Any additions or corrections?
We have one item under the closed session that we're not going to have, that pending litigation, 17, so we don't need that.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda less the point Ray brought up.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of May 15, 2017, and 4 special meetings for budgets. Is there any additions or corrections?
I make a motion, we approve the regular meeting notes for May 15, 2017, the budget meeting of May 23rd, 25th, 30th, and June 1st, 2017.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2017-11 in the amount of $550,883. Any additions or corrections, Mr. Menegini?
On page 2, halfway down underneath refuge collection, Great American Disposal, 3.36 tons of rubbish, 3.49 tons of rubbish, all comes to a little over $800 and some. That was on our, just basically the people bringing stuff down there, Ray?
Yeah, that's the rubbish collection.
Was any of that mixed in with the recycled and we had to pay for them to haul that away too as garbage instead of recycling stuff?
Not on this bill.
Not on this one? Will there be one coming on that?
I'd have to double check to see how they identify those in the billings.
Okay. Also, down under rec department, second from the bottom, load of wood chips, Knights Kingdom. I know we needed some, $1,150. I mean, how many yards of wood chips is that? I'd like to know the breakdown cost. Could you get per yard?
I'll get the breakdown.
Because I know I just picked some up for $20 a yard.
I think those have to be special.
I know, hardwood chips, I know, they're considered playground chips.
You said 2 loads in the manager's report, so I don't know the load.
I think I had one other item here. And again, page 6, halfway down under the water fund, loads of topsoil, $200. I'd like to know how many yards that is to get the cost per yard. And the only other comment I have here is the city's share of the municipal employees retirement system was $39,640. That's all I have.
Mr. Babalani?
I had some of the same questions that Lee had, and also on the second page, the Department of Public Works, Morin has 2 loads of topsoil there. They're paid with the same check, so I'm thinking that's a duplicate from the one Lee was talking about on page 6, and it's on page 2 with the same check, same amount.
That's 2 loads according to the. So
Yeah, but it's billed out on the same check. So, I mean, I got a feeling that,
Is it a total of 400 or is it 200 is what you're asking?
yeah, I think that it's billed twice by looking at it. Mary could probably.
Because of the explanation where she has DPW/water, I'm thinking that it was 2 loads and split between the 2 of them, that they charged. I'm guessing 2 loads total and 1 to each.
Load wouldn't be $400, or load wouldn't be $200 apiece.
So then maybe it's 2 loads to water and 2 loads to DPW, but we can check on the invoice.
Okay,
The
yeah,
fact that
because they're
it's in
about
both
$100
places.
a load.
Okay. We'll look at the invoice.
That's all I got.
Ms. Brew?
I have one on 5 of 8, under the electric utility fund. Krause Power and Engineering, $1,529.70. Was that for him to come here?
No, I believe that's for that DC project, where the conversion, transfer. But I'll pull the invoice just to verify.
Okay, will you let me know what that exactly was for?
Sure.
And then, Lee had his numbers there, Mary. Is that the right number? Did that include what the employees also paid?
City share. That was a city share.
Off of this one? Yes, that was the city's share.
Okay.
Mr. Pop, any questions?
I have nothing else. What was it?
Have no other questions? Need a motion to approve the manifest?
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2017-11 in the amount of $550,000, $883.00.
Support. Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Next on the agenda, anyone from the audience like to address the council on any agenda item? Otherwise, we'll have time for any comments at the end of the meeting. We're now going to public hearing for the amendment to the tax increment financing and development plan for the City of Norway Downtown Development Authority. We need a motion to go into closed session or open into public hearing.
I'll make a motion, we go into public hearing.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, could you?
Okay.
Everybody?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hayes. Tonight, we're holding a public hearing for the adoption of ordinance to approve the DDA plan amendment. The main emphasis of the plan amendment is to extend the life of the DDA to 2046. The current plan expires in 2024. So under this amendment, we are going to start this year and go for a period of 30 years. As part of that process, under the state law, we're required to have a citizens council review the plan amendment and go through the DDA, and then come to council for final review, public hearing, and then final approval. We have read the plan a couple different times. It's been available for public comment, and I guess I'm going to open it up for any questions at this point. I know that in reviewing the plan and in looking at the documents that I provided, gave you a copy of the district. I gave you basically the timeline, where we're at, and what we have left to do, and then, of course, the plan amendment for comment.
Mr. Matson, do you have any comments, or?
No, Dr. Hayes, I'm here to answer any questions on behalf of the DDA, if there are any from the public or from the council. We've got several of our board members are here tonight, so hopefully we can provide some input if there are questions.
Does anybody have any questions from the council or in the audience?
I have a couple questions, Doc. Ray, how far does the Tifa district go on the east side of town? Is it just to the viaduct, or just to the train tracks?
No, the Tifa district does extend east beyond the viaduct. You can see through our map, it does include all the way to the eastern side of the city limits, and it picks up the business areas along the highway, and up through, it does pick up through by the tank.
Okay, I guess I would like to see something in their project list, or I went over their projects that they have for the next probably, I don't know, 20 years,
30,
15
yeah,
years, 30 years?
Yeah.
And I don't see much over there for development on that side of town. Whether it's utility extensions, the promotion of, you know, like the lot that's next to the ambulance. I would like to see something over there.
One of the things that we've had, well, we've been working with Miller Canfield through this process, and, you know, this is a document that is, it's not really living, it's not a living document, it's actually a relatively fixed document, and you have to project out 30 years. And so, some of the language that we put in the document is general in nature for a purpose, and that is utility extension within the district. So
Okay.
that would cover east, west, north, south. You know, we try to come up with, and maybe promoting development within the district, so we use language like that. So I think that it would be covered under some of the things you mentioned, but not specifically east side or west side.
Yeah, I just seen that there were specific projects there, and I didn't see anything for that side of town, and I would like to see something planned out, an aggressive plan to develop in, you know, that area, that whole, like where the old Northwoods Bar is, that whole area along there. Whether it's parking, like for the old restaurant that was there, something to develop that area and help it out a little bit. The other thing I seen in there is 2018, there's a facade program that's supposedly gonna be starting for $200,000. If that looks like it's gonna be a goal for 2018, I would like the business owners in that district to be notified so they could start getting some sort of a plan if they were gonna do facades on their buildings, because I do think it worked out well last time when a lot of the Main Street halls and Eblings and all those, the pharmacy took advantage of that. And we have some businesses that I think on the Main Street and some on the highway that could use a little bit of dolling up. And I'd like to see it put out there so they would be aware of what they could possibly get. That's all I have on that.
Mr. Menegini, any questions or comments?
No comments.
I have none.
Mr. Pop? Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments?
I would just, expand on Ray's comments and answers to Mr. Bobani. You know, I think one of the things that the Citizens Council wanted to be conscious of in conjunction with the meetings that we had with them was to avoid specifics as much as possible, because we don't want to get pigeonholed into something on the north side or west side if a good project comes up on the east side and not have money available for that. We've always tried to be very open on the DDA as to any good fundable project that comes along, we try to do our best to support that. So rather than be specific, we've kind of asked them to be a little bit more general about it. And I think the facade program, that's another one that was, I agree with you, very, very popular. We've tried to do it a couple of times. Sometimes the money wasn't available from the state to help with offsetting part of those costs, like it was on the original one, which was the most successful. That was a kind of a 50-50 match. So, you know, ideally, that's available again in the future. And communication comes once we know what monies are available and we can apply for some of that funding from the state and then pass it along to the business owners. So hopefully, you know, that project does come up, because I think the time we've used it has been very successful.
When do you anticipate when you'll know
I
if
think
there's
it's-
funding available so the
I think it's
businesses?
probably almost a year out, Ray, before we have any knowledge of those.
Well, unfortunately, what they did, our funding was through the MEDC, MISTA, back and forth. It kind of changes based on, I don't know, whatever Lansing wind is going. But they came out after the 2010 census. It took them about 2 or 3 years, so that's pretty typical to catch up. And they redid there's a list of low, low to moderate income communities. And we had done an income survey to get on that list. The first time, I think you had to be 50% or just over 50% or 51%, and we were at 49%. And we had the same thing happen this time, but they really tightened up the rules on it. And what happens if you're not on the list, that in order to access their money for these types of programs, you have to have job creation. Well, it's really difficult for a business, a small business, to say they're creating, even a couple jobs for a facade. So when you're on the list, they waive the income requirement or the job creation requirements. There's only a handful of communities in the UP that remain on the list. And, we weren't one of them. And those communities are like rural townships. They really don't even have downtown. So, we're really struggling with their decision on how they did that. And that's part of what we have to do is communicate with them to say, geez, your program has really disenfranchised the UP. And through the UP managers, we're really having that conversation.
So 2018,
It's-
as it's listed, is unrealistic.
I think it's a speculative target.
Okay, I just wanted to get the businesses ready if there was a chance that,
The other thing that really disappointed us is that we had quite a few businesses up along the highway that wanted to participate, and their program was very stringent about just the Main Street. And we'd actually talked at the DDA about, is there a way of expanding the program and not be beholden so much to that program dollar requirement? Is there another way of handling a program? Because it is a very important program, I think, and popular, and so, there's other programs too that I've been looking at. If you have a building that, has some structural issues, or you have ADA issues, you have some internal issues, why would you spend your money on the external? You have to fix the internal, where a lot of our small businesses, they need help on monies to help them fortify the building. And if they want to save these historic buildings, they need to work from the inside out. And so that's another message I'm trying to move forward. So let's work from the inside out, have programs for those businesses. So
when do you think it would be realistic if 2018? I know it's kind of a guessing game, but are you thinking that maybe 2020?
you know what, I can't even put a date on it, because what we should do is take the 2018 on and just put ongoing. So whenever we get it going, we obviously are gonna, especially if we get the same program dollars and it expands and it does what we need, we obviously want to get that out to as many businesses as possible. And we'd really like to see them go up and down the highway, because there's a number of businesses, like I said, up on the highway that wanted to participate, and they were disenfranchised.
Any other questions from the audience or any other comments from the council, or any other questions? Well, can we just go into the other public hearing then?
Should close this public hearing and enter in a new one.
We need a motion.
I'll make a motion, we close this public hearing and go into the operating capital improvement budget.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes?
Mr. Babalani,
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. Menegini.
Yes.
Mr. Pop.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Okay, this is our annual public hearing for the fiscal year 2017-18 operating and capital improvement budget and General Appropriations Act. Normally, we have a public hearing, the first meeting in June. The budget will come back in 2 weeks. There's a number of resolutions that are going to be brought before the council at that point with our rate structure, with non-union pay scales, with the budget itself, and with the Appropriations Act, General Appropriations Act. The General Appropriations Act is, just for reference, is required by law. It's a resolution required by law, which spells out the main portions of the general fund and our local and major and local street funds. What I gave you tonight for the public hearing is a manager's message, which tries to lay out some of the high points of the budget. As I said in my memo, there's 13 funds. We have the general fund, which is the major fund, which includes your tax dollars. In the general fund, it's a service type fund, so it has your public works, your police, administration. It also has, we have a buildings and grounds fund, a recreation fund, or recreation department. Those are all part of the general fund. Outside of that, the other funds are your street funds, your major and local street funds. Those are developed through the State Public Act 51, and funding for that, the major and local streets, come in two areas. It comes from the Act 51 monies from the state based on the gas tax, and then also through, if there's a shortfall, the shortfall comes from the general fund. We have our DDA, museum, the city-owned museum. Fire used to be in the general fund, but the fire is brought out and it has its separate fund now. Again, that is offset by the general fund for the city's portion of that, but I think mainly we have that fund because we have a contract with Norway Township and Waseda Township, so we don't have an authority. That the fire department is a department, but we have a contract with the townships. So that keeps a separate fund collection for that reason. And then, of course, our cable, electric, wastewater, water, those are all utility funds. We call them enterprise funds. So the revenue has a revenue, separate revenue and expense, and monies that go in and out, they stay within that fund. And then the last is a capital fund, and then OPEB fund, which is our post-retirement healthcare. I've given you some statistics within memo. This year, in the last couple years, because of our projects, the wastewater fund is the largest of the all fund revenues and expenditures, running at roughly 35% total. Normally, that's the water and the wastewater funds are down in the midstream, like around 10%. But because of the major project down at the plant, it's driving the revenues and expense mainly off the project costs and the bond issue. Normally our largest fund is the electric fund. That's normally up around that 30%, but it's because of the percentages, it's about 18% this year. And then our general fund is at 16%. You can see the list in the report, listing the percentages of the funds. I've also given you within, as part of the attachment, a little later through, a chart which gives you some of the dollar figures we're mentioning, and it also gives you those percentages. It's a spreadsheet form. So if you look at the spreadsheet on all funds, we're at $21.4 million in proposed revenue versus $20.8 million of proposed expense. Again, it's a little skewed because of the $8 million, $7.5 million in the wastewater fund. Normally, we run about $13 million total on the funds. Some major highlights, like I said, we went through 4 budget hearings, and we went through in detail our electric fund and our cable fund, our water sewer, general fund, wrapped up with the other funds. Some major highlights with our departments and which are funds. In the general fund, we are showing a revenue positive for this year, and partly it's because of some of the income that's coming in for some property sales, but we do have some expense. We have a land purchase that we're finalizing this year. That's what we did about 5 years ago with Dave Anderson, so that's going to come to conclusion this year. And then we do have some monies put away for the road work. We have an agenda item later on in the agenda for our local share in our road, water and sewer project. We do have some local share though for some extra road work, but that's all coming out of the general fund this year. So you know, we're roughly at even with the fund. One thing I note is that again the taxes, the general taxes are down about 0.3% this year. It's been down the last 2 to 3 years. So, and our revenue sharing is also down again this year in percentage. I point out the revenue sharing because when I first started 2009, or 1999, 2000, 2001, we actually capped out at 26% of the revenues in the general fund came from the revenue sharing. And we're down below 10%. And we've been creeping down ever since. 2008 was probably our worst. The state pulled back on its discretionary amounts within the revenue sharing. They have to keep their statutory, but there's another proportion that they have some discretion on, and they've been pulling back on that for a steady 10 years. And so you see we've been slowly dropping, and especially on the percentage. So that has impacted, or we've had to work with that limitation. Other parts of the general fund, in the buildings and grounds, we have to try and a couple of projects for the city hall. That's probably a major portion of any capital work that comes out of the general fund. Equipment, the DPW, there's the old fire truck that we're going to retrofit this year. So that's out of the fund as well. It's about $60,000 out of the fund. Of course, in the electric fund, we still have some work at the hydro. We talked about that. That's going to be coming up at the next meeting. So we're still working with our financing to refinance their current bonds. So we talked about that. We're pretty good savings on that, but then we have some work that we have to do that's been continually egging on, and we have to get that done over this next year. In the cable, again, we talked about that fund where we have to look at that fund and look at our services. I think that it's very popular on the internet side. Again, that's where we are focusing our efforts, and on the video side, it's a challenge, but we're trying to give some additional services to our customers. On the major and local streets, that one is a constant problem for us. We know that, we talk about it every year. We outspend our revenues about 8% every year. That is due to the Act 51 calculation, sending us the monies. And when we say we outspend it, just fixing streets, just plowing and sanding, salting, just the general work that we do in that fund, our revenues do not keep up. So our general fund does support the major and local street funds. When we talk about doing actual projects, we did the crush and shape jobs, we do any reconstruct, we try to aggressively attack any kind of grant program that's out there. And when I come back and I talk about reclassifying or classifying streets into a certain designation, it really comes down to where funding can be sought out and where we can have roads that are actually eligible for certain classifications, whether it's moving a local street to a major street, which has some restrictions, been doing that, or coming under the federal aid program, which is dealing mostly with commercial type routes or traffic pattern routes. This past year or 2 years ago, they moved us into what they call a small urban with Iron Mountain and Kingsford. And although that's been somewhat of a challenge, because in the rural task force group that I was involved with, we had very limited amount of roads that qualified. They moved us into the small urban, and we actually have more roads that could qualify. The problem is now I have to go and actively qualify those roads, and they're they've gotten more restrictive because the dollars aren't there to pass around. So I've been trying to work on that issue. So I guess at this point, you've had the report. I guess I'm going to open it up for questions. If you have any for me at this point.
I guess I would like to point out to the media that the city of Norway is not raising any of their commodity utilities. The rates are staying the same.
That is a good point, Mark. We are keeping all of our rates and taxes the same for this coming up year. There are a couple of fees that we looked at for increasing, but for the most part, everything's staying the same.
Mostly
And-
the reconnect.
Basically, the fees are to cover our costs. If somebody takes off with one of the modems or something like that, it's not anything that's really benefiting the city in any amount. It's just covering the cost.
Or if a person doesn't pay and they get their services cut off, then there's gonna be a slightly larger charge to reconnect. I think is the only increased fees that I can think of. Any other questions down here or comments?
I don't have any.
Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Anybody have any questions or comments? Last time, any questions or comments? We need to make a motion to go back into open session then.
I make a motion to go back into open session. Or
Support.
public hearing.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Next, under appointments and presentations, Electric Utility Board, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the budget hearing, a request was made in looking at our rate structure, especially in the electric utility, as to whether do an evaluation of such as time of use rates. There were a couple of the rate structure that we wanted to take a look at. And so it was requested to bring the Electric Utility Board together. Over the last couple of years, we lost a valuable member of our board, Ed Ball, and George has tendered his letter of resignation, George Ball. So we were down to 2 individuals that's sitting on this board. So we did advertise, and I did find 3 individuals that are willing to step up and sit on this electric utility board. That would be Bo Anderson, Corey Heigl, and Gerald Kaminsky. So I'm asking council to accept George Ball's resignation and add Bo Anderson, Corey Heigl, and Gerald Kaminsky to the board.
Is there a council member on that board, Ray?
There is not, but we'd welcome council members on the board.
I guess I would like to sit on that board.
I'd just like to make a comment here, where Gerald Kaminsky had been on the board before, but now with Mr. Anderson and Mr. Heigl, it's nice to get some young blood on some of these boards, including you then.
He's older than me.
Is there a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. George Ball and the 4 new members to the board?
I make a motion to accept George Ball's resignation, and I'd like to thank him for his years of service to the city.
I'll support that motion.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
And please send him a letter of thanks for that. Is there a motion then to appoint 3 new members plus Mr. Babalani to the utility board?
I'll make a motion that a council appoint Mr. Bo Anderson, Mr. Corey Heigl, Mr. Gerald Kaminsky, and Councilman Babalani.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
I'll vote for the 3 and abstain from myself.
All right.
Is the question, is it illegal to add Mr. Babalani as a member, a voting member to the board, because isn't the number of people on the board set?
Well, we don't have an actual bylaw that sets the total number on the board.
That was
It's
my
always been-
question.
Yeah, we don't have that. So we could add another if somebody's interested.
Okay. Yes? Approval of letter of engagement, Foster, Swift, Collins, and Smith PC. Mr. Anderson.
I don't know, do you want me to toss this one over to you, Grant? This is for legal service.
We have a appeal to the tax tribunal on a valuation of a property here in town. And we chatted a bit in the past regarding the process of how this works. Basically, we need to attend a tax tribunal hearing for valuation purposes in Lansing. We discussed a little bit with the council, my office handling this matter as we've done in the past with the city of Iron Mountain. That being said, there's beyond just the costs, I disclosed a conflict that we would have with the office at this time. And also it does make sense, I think, for local council in Lansing to handle this matter. Both myself and Mr. Wiseman reached out to a number of actually, I reached out to one individual. Mr. Wiseman made a number of different contacts down in Lansing. He took the bull by the horns for the most part and made contacts. The same name came up on a number of different occasions. Mr. Van Covering, that was the same individual, the name I received, but Mr. Wiseman followed up with him. The young man here with Foster Swift is, I believe he's a former judge with the tax tribunal as well. And also, I believe also represented the city of Iron Mountain, some of the dark store issues that were recently, some of the, received some media attention and continues to receive media attention on taxable values for that. So with Mr. Wisenen's contact of the young man at Foster Swift, brought before the council, that it would be appropriate for the council to approve, of course, hiring outside legal counsel. It lays out some of the billing rates. Obviously, we're dealing with Lansing billing rates, which are a little different than UP billing rates. Hopefully, with this young man's experience and the firm's experience, this can be expedited, but there will be costs. I would suggest to the council that the costs for these type of proceedings generally actually are a little higher for the appraisals, frankly, almost as much as the attorney fees. So I noted as well that Mr. Van Covering puts a cap of for a municipal rate, if you will, for the council's consideration. And I think it best that the council approve any outside council participation for this appellate work in Lansing itself.
A motion then to accept this, or is there further discussion? Or anybody have any questions?
I make a motion, we approve the Foster, Swift, Collins, and Smith as a retainer for the tax tribunal issue.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Next, Water Department Subsurface Locator. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a request from our water department. This locator is an integral piece of equipment that we use on a regular basis in the water department. Our current or old locator is over 15 years plus old. We weren't quite sure the age, so we do know it's over 15. And it quit, and it's going to cost over half, if not $2,000 to fix, and it was just recommended to just buy a brand new one, updated. It's a better unit, so we have a price for $3,100 to purchase a locator, subsurface locator.
Is there a guarantee then on this?
Well, there's a standard guarantee that goes with equipment, probably 6 months.
This was they thought the best unit for the price?
Yes. Yes, this is the locator that they're choosing at this point. But it's used on a regular basis, so it's an integral piece for both the water and even electric has used it occasion for finding a utility.
I make a motion to, buy the subsurface locator not to exceed $3,100.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Next, approval of the rural development local share amendment. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you noticed that there was a colored map that was on your desk when you showed up with red, I'm glad that we had that copied, because when I looked at the black and white, the red didn't come out. So, but what happened was, previously, the council meeting previous, brought some local extra crush and shape project or job to council for approval for $200,000. Mainly the avenues, as you can see in the map, the avenues connecting in between the streets. But when, as we were moving along in the project, there were a number of other areas that, because there might be only one utility, so rather than only pave half the street, we're gonna pave the whole street, or just finishing up an end to a street, so we don't end mid-block. So you can see the total, they put all of the red on there for total. I had, or Meat and Hunt did give me an estimate for this extra work, and it comes out to $79,565. So the total for our local share would be $272,949. So we did put that in the upcoming budget. It's through the general fund. So we're just asking council to approve that amount to move forward.
Ray, I had asked if you'd take a little look at the alley behind Chico Balls there,
Yeah,
where it comes out, where it comes out.
We did take a look at that. That isn't on this right now, but I'm sure that as we move along, we're probably gonna not be done with some of this. So we might have a balancing, but it makes sense for us to take a look at it and scoop that out of it.
Yeah, it's an undesirable exit.
I just haven't had a chance to get with Terry yet to go through it. We are actually looking at, on the other side of this as well, there's some ways of saving some monies through the project as well. So, we are going back and forth. It's just, this was a large item that we thought we'd better bring it to you right away. I'll let you know.
I make a motion to approve the additional $79,565, or the total price not to exceed $272.94.
$472,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. $272,949.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Number 13, Sturgeon Falls Hydroelectric Facility Bridge Crane Repair Proposal. Mr. Anderson.
This particular project, this is, I'll say right off the bat, this is not a budgeted item. This is something that has come up through inspection recently, that our main overhead gantry crane in the powerhouse, the gears system is worn and teeth are cracked, and it's not safe. And we had Myron take a look at it, as they're in doing work right now. We had him take a look at it, and we asked them to give us a price to fix that, because quite frankly, we'd be dead in the water, no pun intended, if we couldn't use that crane especially during some of the generator work. So they gave us a price of $52,140. We can handle this easily within the budget. It is time and material, so when we work with them, they're probably a little heavy on their estimate, but it's, they're taking a look at it, the scaffolding. There's quite a bit of work in scaffolding just to get up to the area of work. So it's a pretty extensive little job.
So do you think at this time we should get somebody else in there to do some non-destructive testing, like on the hooks or any of the welds or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. At this point, that could be something after they finish, though. We probably should take a look maybe at some of that. I'd have to ask and see if we have any records of when anybody has done any NDE work on the hooks, especially.
Yeah.
I think it's
It wouldn't be them, though.
It's
They
the
would not.
backbone of
No, I
the
don't think so,
repairs
but-
down there, and
Yeah, you have to have
and
it.
the amount of work that we have going on down there, we just have to do it.
Is there a motion to approve?
Now, is he something that we don't have, do we have to have an engineer give the load?
No, actually, we had somebody take a look at it. We did find a rating on the crane.
Okay.
And we do have a drawing, but it's, you know, it was done in 1908, so, you know, it's only one print. But they did take a look at it, and they said they felt pretty confident that the load rating still stood. But I am still reaching out to Mead and Hunt. They handle our FERC licensing, and I'm just asking them the questions right now, and maybe they'll come in and do an inspection for us. you
Is
know,
there any
under our
warranty
license.
coverage on the work that they'll do?
Myron will have probably a 1-year warranty
Okay.
on workmanship for sure. So, this is all, you know, they're just they're repairing his gear shafts, or the gear
Yeah.
teeth, you know, so it's.
Any other questions? Need a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that Myron Construction be approved to perform the bridge crane repairs on a time and material basis for a price not to exceed $52,140.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
On the next on the agenda, Sturgeon Falls Hydroelectric Facility Transformer Switch Replacement.
Okay, this item came out of the last inspection we had of backup generator. This is a throwover switch for that backup generator, and I asked him to have somebody look at it and see what it would cost to replace that switch. That switch is damaged and does need to be replaced. So B&B is in town handling some work, and we had them come down and take a look, and they gave us a price of $5,750. This is not a cheap switch, so.
It's not a regular light switch. It's not a regular light switch.
No,
Can't go to Halls and pick it up.
no, I would not, I think.
Have we done any work before, or have B&B do any work for us before, Ray?
Yeah, they've done work.
They've done?
They're actually down at the waste plant right now.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we award B&B Electric the switch changeout project not to exceed $5,750.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Would anybody in the audience like to make a comment on any item? If so, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
I have a question for the council regarding sidewalks in our city. I live on Brown Street, which is a very busy road in this town. The sidewalks are absolutely horrible. I took a walk with my granddaughter and husband today, he was in a wheelchair, and because we wanted to go for a long walk. Next door, we got jammed up on the water main sticking up in the sidewalk. A couple of other places that we got jammed up, could have tipped him over. Sidewalk is like this, it's like a sea serpent up and down. So we did like all the old folks down at the nursing home, we went out into the street and I pushed him down the middle of the bike lane there. Is there any way that we can do something about the sidewalks? It's a safety issue for the old folks, you know, when they're in their electric chairs, coming up and down from the nursing home.
Mr. Anderson.
Well, you know, if council has to decide how they want to appropriate the dollars for, you know, street projects and sidewalk projects. We've had sidewalk replacement projects in the past, but they've been resident shared, sidewalk projects. We talked about that during budget hearings. If we do it that way, where the resident would pay for the concrete, the city would, do the work and install it, that's probably the most economical way for both sides. Then we could, it's just timing with the crew, we could actually handle quite a bit of sidewalk during the course of the year. If we have to appropriate the dollars out of it would be out of the major or local street fund, then we have to find out, where the dollars are coming from, probably the general fund, so.
At the current time, there's no set rules, just that people are responsible for their own sidewalks, and I think we need a sidewalk ordinance myself. I've brought this up in the past a number of times, that we need to make our sidewalks safe for walking, and I think there should be a sidewalk ordinance, and at least for the downtown, that we would,
Especially on Brown Street,
people maintain their sidewalks.
It's a safety issue. When dump trucks come flying through at 50 miles an hour, in or out of town.
Do you think the residents would sign up for a program like that?
I don't know. I mean, ours is really, I'm not bragging, but ours is the best on our side of the street there. And we've been out, putting patches in, where little chips have come out and stuff, but, it's a safety issue for our residents. We protect our people before somebody gets killed by a truck.
Yeah, we talked about advertising, and with the road projects this year, it's gonna be tough to have the crew break free to do any length of sidewalk work. But we could take the names over the course of the rest of this year and into the spring, and then next year plan a sidewalk replacement, project. But we would need the residents to pick up the cost of the concrete. Otherwise we gotta figure out a way of appropriating it.
Maybe it's in the DDA.
Brown Street's not, unfortunately.
We're like a block outside of it, but.
The highway side,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, I'm just concerned, especially the old folks, their little electric chairs, how long before one of these trucks comes through and creams one of them, So, I worry about all these old men coming up and down the roads.
But again, I think we need a sidewalk ordinance right now. People are responsible for their own sidewalk. If something happens on the sidewalk, that's the homeowner's responsibility at this time. And yet the city does not require to even have a sidewalk, or they just require the individual to maintain it. So if there's anyone else who feels that we need a sidewalk ordinance, I think they should contact the city hall.
They're definitely not being maintained on Brown Street. Even the next block down, there's more rubble and grass growing in than there is any concrete in front of one of those.
And the sidewalks are all undersized, I think. They're all too narrow.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Anybody else in the audience have any comments or questions on any matter? Anybody else in the audience, or Mr. Pop? Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to say congratulations to Matt Peterson for winning the 2017 Public Power Scholarship. That's all.
I have nothing.
Mr. Bobolani?
Yeah, I got a couple. I was looking for the update on the roof at the hydro warranty claim issue.
I have no update right now.
Okay. Because I know the
But I'll
roof is
fact check on it
finished. I
tomorrow.
was hoping that, fairly soon we would be getting something. Stump grinder, is it back in shape, Bob? I know I questioned it last time, hoping that, we got summer students. I know the summer students can't run the stump grinder, but they can help rake up after the stump grinder is done. It'd be a good project.
Yeah, I think the stump grinder is close to getting out. It's just the schedule.
Okay.
Schedule's
I haven't seen the street sweeper with all of the storms that we've been having. There's a lot of marbles all over the road that are undesirable for motorcycles. Update on the spring project, anything?
I don't have an update from the last time we met.
Okay,
I'll double check on that again tomorrow too.
okay. I'd like to talk about, Ray, you had the liability of the city if somebody was interested in cutting trees on city property. Myself, I don't think it's a real good idea, allowing that.
Yeah, I've been getting numerous requests, you know, when we had the logging project down at the dam. We've got, you know, a couple other areas with property, you know, with the downfall trees, and, you know, I have different people that ask me if they could go in and cut them up for firewood. That's really a policy that we need to entertain with the council, see how you would want to address that. As to allowing that, at one time we had talked about possibly a waiver of liability and a permit, a paid permit, to let them go in. I remember back in the day, the state of Michigan used to have something similar where we used to go in on state land after a cutting and be able to cut wood, but I think they've stopped that program. I'm not quite sure, but
You think that'd be
it's
too
really
big?
up to council on.
That'd be too big of a liability.
I know, Grant, you had written something at one time, I know we had asked that.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago, when, I think there was a lot of large trees that were taken down. We had a bunch of trees over here at the, one of the garages, I think in the fall. We had done up, where we were allowing some folks to come and pick them up and haul away the trees. If I remember, that was a couple of years ago now. You know, talking about allowing folks to come onto the city property to cut wood, you know, as an attorney, I suppose the first thing that crossed my mind is both Mark and Scott's commentary when you start talking about chainsaws and any liability. You know, we do enjoy certain governmental immunities, but, you know, if we're starting to sell firewood, you start getting into proprietary issues, and I certainly like to look in a little bit further on whether or not that's appropriate or not. And I don't know how you monitor it, how do you keep an eye on it, how do you know that they're coming and cutting trees that are down versus that are standing? I think it does open a Pandora's box a bit on top of just the liability issues. So if it's something the council would like us to look into a little further, certainly can do so. And I was thinking the same thing that Ray referenced. I seem to recall the state, and I don't know if they still do it or not, allowing you to get a permit and go onto their property or not if you have a cut. That'd be a good place to start. But it starts with the council, whether it's something the council is comfortable with. But I would share some of the same concerns. And I don't know how you oversee what they're taking off your property, whether or not it's standing timber, falling timber on the ground, and then not to mention the liability issues.
Myself, I don't think we should waste any money on looking at the legalities and spending any attorney money.
I would agree. I think there's too much liability. You'd like to allow people, but I think we'd have to police the effort, and that would, we don't have abundance of city workers that could police it.
Do we need a write-up on it then, a technical write-up, that nobody shall cut?
No,
I don't believe so.
Policy?
I don't believe so. That would just be our implied policy.
Well, we could put an actual written policy, so it's, I hate to use the word codified, but at least it's formalized.
And I agree with the same thing. How are you gonna police that? You don't know if they're taken. And too much of a liability.
Well, look at that tree. I thought it was dead, so I figured I'd take it down for you.
We could look into coming up with something.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I got another one, Ray. I got a call from, I got a notification from Craig Backlund. He said that new system for notification of the utilities when they're down wasn't working. So I don't know if, I think it was Thursday. The cable, he tried that new system with the numbers. I think he said it was number 4 that he needed to leave a message, but it didn't go through. Curb cuts. Ray, you had in the memo that the curb cuts are problems, and I know they are. With the street project, I would like to see notifications sent out to the curb cut eliminations that were gonna affect which property owners, so the people knew and they didn't show up to get rid of the curb cut and there was nothing out there, so they would know. So I don't know if you can go through some of the curb cuts and,
Yeah, I actually took a ride last week. There's not that many that I jotted down. You know, like, we've gone through this before, it's typically access off the alley. If you have good access off the alley and you don't have a formalized drive already in place, then we want to have that curb go through. But it does state within the zoning code that, or in a right-of-way code too, that, you know, when we come through on a new street project, that if you do, even if you do have a drive and a curb cut, that you have to make that area in the boulevard hardscape, either concrete or asphalt. So we also want to notify on that, because this is a good time to have that done. When they're coming through and blacktopping the road, you know, then the resident can get that done, you know, at that time. So I've been trying to put together, in fact, I've been using the right-of-way permit to try and keep track of whether it's a request, or I'll do the same thing with, you know, notifications. I took down some of the addresses, so I was in the process of going in that direction.
okay. And then the other thing that I see, that you're gonna be going to a MMEA meeting on the 14th and the 15th. I was hoping that maybe you could cover that telecommunication wise, if possible, because we have so much going on in the city here. And I know last time we talked, you said you had your hands full, and I believe it. So I was hoping that if it wasn't a high pressure meeting, that maybe you could stay in town and.
Yeah, I haven't been down there since probably January, so I do have to get my face in the door. I've been taken in, not going on my own volition based on what we're doing. So I was hoping that maybe this one, I'd be able to get down there. And a lot of it depends too on if House and Senate are in Lansing, then I usually stop in on Wednesday afternoon, you know, and spend some time with our representatives.
Yeah, I was just hoping that some of the stuff like the hydro roof and these curb cuts and that could be taken care of on a timely manner. Not saying they wouldn't be, but would free you up a little bit. That's all I got, Doc.
Mr. Menegini?
Well, got a comment. Congratulations to the boys' high school baseball team, hardball. They lost a heartbreaker, but the girls won the district, so they're off to Rudyard. And if anybody's interested, it's National Dairy Month. And that's all I have.
I had a couple of comments. There was a request that there was 2 dead trees at Strawberry Lake that they removed. Those are elm. They seem to be quite solid. The woodpeckers do need some food, so I guess my thought would be better off leaving them there. And the other would be the people dumping trash in the dumpster. Would this be a place for a camera? I know the council in general does not like to place cameras, but if we're going to catch anybody, it's not going to be putting having someone write down a license plate. I think we're going to have to catch somebody in the act, have a video of it. So if we want to stop illegal dumping there, I think we're going to have another camera. And I guess Lee was asking questions about that earlier.
I'm a
Whether
frequent.
how much we're spending to dispose of this, whereas if it was recyclable, we wouldn't have to.
I'm a frequent recycler over there, Doc, and I watch it pretty heavy, and I don't foresee that we have a little I don't foresee we have much of a problem at all. Once in a while, you get a bag with a plastic bag with the plastic jugs in it, but I haven't seen any garbage in there.
Okay, well, I would just base that comment on our manager's note.
Yeah, my note was referring to the comment that came up about Marion Park dumpsters. We're getting.
Oh, I thought it was this one.
No, well, that one we've had, off and on, we've had some issues, but I've asked David to check that on a regular basis. Make sure you get the illegal stuff out of there as soon as possible, because that kind of breeds more problems. So he's been doing that, and but yeah, we've been having trouble. We have a dumpster out at Marion Park that is getting trash thrown at it, illegal
the dumpster for?
Our garbage.
So, I mean, household garbage, people dumping their,
Yeah, from outside of the state.
yeah. Okay. Mr. Carlson, any comments or?
Very briefly, more as a citizen than as your attorney. Council chats a lot, and one of the things that you guys observe is discussion of funding and/or the condition of the Jake Menegini Museum and the Norway Mir. Last week, the Norway Elementary, my daughters included, made trips to the Norway Mir and the Menegini Museum. And just for some perspective from some young girls, they spoke about it for days. It really was a hands-on experience at the Norway Mir. They really enjoyed it. Talked about the experience, including the woodticks, but also the museum. They both came back wide-eyed and asking a lot of questions about the Norway history, our area. Got a chance to talk to them about history, and wanted to just let the council know that the young kids within the community in the elementary school, I think, really enjoyed it. They talked a lot about it before they went there, heard a lot about it after they came back, and sometimes we forget about the little gems we have in our community. So I just wanted to let the council know from a father's perspective that it's appreciated, the attention that the city and the council gives to some of these projects.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
I have nothing at this time.
Nobody over there, I think. We need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes?
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
And there will be no business carried out after the closed session.